in the church calendar year, we always look forward to the celebration of Christmas and also the celebration of Easter. But in the case of our celebration of Easter, we set aside the entire week of what is called sometimes Easter week or Passion Week, or even more frequently, Holy Week. And during that period, we observe Maundy Thursday, we observe Good Friday, but it all starts with the Sunday before Easter that we call Palm Sunday. And the reason for the celebration of that is that the New Testament accords great significance to that event in the life and ministry of Jesus, the event that is called the triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. Let's look at the record of it as we find it in the Gospel according to St. Luke. Chapter 19, verse 28 of Luke's Gospel reads, "When he had said this, he went on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. And it came to pass, when he drew near to Bethphage and Bethany, at the mountain called Olivet, that he sent two of his disciples, saying, Go into the village opposite you, where as you enter you will find a colt tied, on which no one has ever sat. Loose it and bring it here. And if anyone asks you, Why are you loosing it? Thus you shall say to him, Because the Lord has need of it." Now there's a little bit more information given on this text in Matthew's Gospel. We recall that Matthew's Gospel was written for a Jewish audience. And there are more references or allusions to Old Testament texts found in Matthew's Gospel than in any of the other Gospels, because he was constantly reminding his Jewish readers of the connection between the Old Testament prophecies and the New Testament person and work of Jesus. So we'll look at Matthew's significant details in a moment. But here we have Jesus approaching the holy city. And the secret that he has been carefully guarding during his earthly ministry is about to be disclosed, as Jesus is going to make a public display identifying himself to some degree with the Old Testament prophecies concerning the coming of the Messiah. Now we may miss some of the imagery here and its significance, because we would think, well, if Jesus really wants to announce his vocation as Messiah, why doesn't he ride into Jerusalem on a golden chariot? Well, the reason is that in the Old Testament, the prophecy of Zechariah, for example, talked about the coming of Jerusalem's king, who would be riding on the foal of a donkey. For lo, your king comes lowly and riding upon a donkey, and is a cause for the celebration of the daughters of Jerusalem. So Jesus makes careful preparations for this entry. He doesn't just casually walk into the city. He said, now I want you to go to this certain place and get this donkey that no one has ever ridden before, and bring it here. And if they ask you what you're doing, making this request, you just tell them, the Lord has need of it, and they'll give it to you. And so this is part of the preparation, the setting of the stage for the entry into Jerusalem itself. And all this was done, in verse 42, according to Matthew chapter 21, verse 42, all this was done that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet, saying, Tell the daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming to you, lowly and sitting on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. Now in Matthew's version, we read the following description. So the disciples went and did as Jesus commanded them. They brought the donkey and the colt, laid their clothes on them, and set him on them. And a very great multitude spread their clothes on the road. Others cut down branches from the trees and spread them on the road. And then the multitudes who went before and those who followed cried out, saying, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. We have an expression in our culture. When we want to honor some dignitary, we say of the occasion that we will roll out the red carpet for them. Has anybody ever rolled out a red carpet for you? I want to tell you of a once-in-a-lifetime experience that I had the privilege to have a few years ago in Europe, where I had the opportunity with my wife to make a short journey on the Orient Express, the one that is made famous by Agatha Christie's famous murder on the Orient Express. Well, I knew this was a nice facility, but literally when our taxi took us in Hungary to the train station and we got to the parking lot, there in the middle of the parking lot was a red carpet. and the porters came and took our bags, and we were allowed to walk down the red carpet. So that's the first time and only time in my life I've received the red carpet treatment. But Jesus' red carpet was much more significant than that. First of all, people divested themselves of their garments to make a comfortable place for him to sit on the animal. They put their clothes on the back of the donkey. And Jesus then sat on that. Now, if you've ever been to Jerusalem in these days, you know that people don't use saddles to ride these donkeys. And these donkeys are not to be confused with American mules, which are as big and sometimes bigger than horses. In fact, it's kind of comical to watch people riding donkeys today in and around Jerusalem, because the men, who are grown men, tend to dwarf the poor donkey, and you wonder how the donkey could even support the weight of a man, and they have to keep their feet up off the ground to keep from dragging their feet, because the donkey is a very little animal over there, and they trot real quickly. It's a funny thing to see in these days. But this was the situation, that not only did the people take their clothes and put it on the back of the donkey, but they took their clothes and they threw them in the pathway that the donkey would follow. And this was done as a gesture of honor and of celebration. Just as the famous man of chivalry who took his cape, who was it, Sir Walter Raleigh, when the woman was about to step through the mud puddle, and he took his cloak and put it in the mud so that she would not fall or become soiled. So the people took their clothes, their finery, and they threw them in the pathway of Jesus as he rode into the city. This was treating him as a coming king. This was treatment reserved for royalty. And it exceeded in enthusiasm any ticker tape parade that we might have in New York City.